Hey guys, welcome back to my Daily News X, your quick but deep dive into what's happening in the world of tech and businesses. I'm your host Kramer, and today we're focusing on a major disruption. I'm talking about a global outage at Amazon Web Services, AWS. So what's going on? Who is affected? And what it means for businesses and how companies are responding to this. So buckle up my friends, because we're going to find out what's going on and what's happening. So as early this morning, AWS reported that its US East 1 region began suffering increased errors rates and latency across multiple services. According to the status updates, the outage began around 3:11 a.m. estimated. That's when users began reporting apps and services failures, by the way. AWS confirmed that the issue was within their infrastructure, causing major connectivity problems for many of their customers. Now, who's affected by all these issues, and companies' infrastructure? Because AWS is essentially the backbone of a huge portion of the internet. The outage has rippled widely. Some of the impacted companies and services include, for example, we have gaming and social apps, the most affected. I can mention that Fortnite, Roblox, and Snapshot were down or severely degraded. Then we have also the finance category and fintech, like Coinbase, Venmo. Even Robinhood reported service interruptions, the financial company Robinhood. Let's not include Amazon's own services, parts of the Amazon.com, Alexa devices, Ring doorbells also experienced some issues, and you name the rest. Outside of the US, we can mention that in the UK, banks like Lloyds Banks, Bank of Scotland, telecoms like Vodafone, and the government tax channel, Asian Revenue and Customs, they saw also disruptions in the systems. So in short, mostly a large cross-section of apps, talking about games, financial services, consumer tech, and government function. Those were the primarily companies affected by this outage. Now, the big question is, why is this happening? Well, let's dig into the root cause, because AWS message pointed to increased error rates and latencies for multiple AWS services in the US East 1 region. Later reporting showed that there was a problem related to the domain name systems, also known as DNS. This is or traffic load balancing / endpoint services. For example, the AWS subsystem that converts web addresses to IP addresses may have failed or degraded. So it was down completely. Importantly, it's something that you need to know. Cybersecurity analysts say that there is currently no evidence this was a cyber attack. I repeat, no evidence that this was a cyber attack. Rather, it looks like a technical glitch or internal failure. I just want to get that out of the way. And now, who's to blame for all this? Because publicly, AWS has not pointed fingers yet at any external attacker. The likely cause was internal change of failed subsystems in a central region, again, US 1 East, and the cascading impact of a critical cloud provider outage. So there's no villain outside, but the fault lies in a complex cloud infrastructure failing. Now, let's talk about the cost. How much is going to be costing to these companies? Because quantifying exact losses is really tricky in real time. But given the scale, thousands of companies impacted, millions of users disrupted. For example, The Guardian reports over 2,000 companies were affected, with 8.1 million user reports across the US, UK, and Australia. For businesses, they have lost transactions, interrupted services, and brand reputational damage. It's bad. It was really bad. A cloud outage of this scale easily translates into tens or hundreds of millions in lost revenue for large players, especially gaming platforms, fintech apps, and e-commerce businesses. Some services were down for multiple hours before recovery. So the longer the disruption, the greater the loss. But I don't have the fully verified dollar amount for this event yet. But based on past outages of similar magnitude, I can say the AWS or cloud provider outages, losses run into hundreds of millions for the ecosystem, just so you know. Now, here comes the $1 million question. How long will this last, this outage? And what are AWS and their engineers doing right now as we speak? Well, they've been actively engaged, working to mitigate errors, reroute traffic, rebuild services, and get things back online and running. On the status page, AWS says they are actively engaged and working to both mitigate the issue and fully understand the root cause. As a few hours later this outage happened, some services began to recover within a few hours of the onset outage. So reports suggest by early morning, many apps were coming back online. Now, how long will it last? But the worst of the outage seems to be mitigated already. As at the time of reporting, that I'm saying. Some residual issues may still linger until today or later on today, with occasional glitches. However, due to the dependence on this region, there might be ongoing risk until full structural assurance is restored. Essentially, the major downtime may be a few hours, but full backup to normal. It might take the rest of the day maybe. Just think about that. So, what are companies doing to restore and future-proof to make sure that this doesn't happen to them again in the future? And what are the affected companies doing right now? So many platforms are restoring services, rerouting workloads, switching to backup regions, applying patches, monitoring user complaints and traffic spikes. On a longer horizon, this incident reinforces the companies must architect for multi-region redundancy, cloud provider diversification. That means not relying only on one provider or one region. They have incident response plans ready in place. From cloud provider perspective, I think AWS pretty much has learned the lesson and likely will issue a post-mortem. They usually do it, but just in case. So this is explaining the root cause, lessons learned, and a step to prevent recurrence in the future. So there you have it, guys. A major global cloud outage originated within AWS, affecting a wide range of services, from gaming to finance, rooted in internal infrastructure failure rather than a cyber attack. So recovery already is underway with much of the damage done in the first couple of hours, but the ripple effect will still persist for the rest of the day. For businesses and users alike, this is just a reminder that we live in an era where the entire swaths of the internet depend on a few cloud providers. So when one goes down, many will go down. Thanks for tuning in to my daily news X. If you found this episode very helpful, please share it, subscribe it, and hit the like button. Tomorrow we'll bring you the next big story, maybe something about Amazon to follow up. Until then, stay online as much as you can, of course if you can at this moment, and keep your backups in 2 regions, not only one. Have yourself a great day.